Hello, this is Kyle Chambers with the Quality Matters. Uh, geez, I'm getting myself mixed up going between the podcast and QMS Bootcamp. Sorry, here for the QMS Bootcamp with Texas Quality Assurance. So we haven't actually done one of these for a little while, but we are trying to get back at it. And the goal is that we're going to be putting these on a monthly basis. Now, in the past, we've really focused the QMS Bootcamp on what really matters specifically for quality managers. So we're really going to be trying to do this here is to retarget and get this centered for business owners, specifically small business, small mid-sized organizations, of really what matters for quality management for your business, for your day in and day out life, because we want to make certain that you can utilize these quality management principles to really drive what matters in your organization. You want to make sure that you've got the tools you need to not just keep cost down and quality up, because these are honestly, they're kind of cliche. No one quite knows what they mean, but we really want to start getting you the tools and resources you need to do what matters most for you and your organization. So today's topic actually came at the request of some good friends of ours over at the Oil and Gas Global Network. Mark LaCour suggested that this month's topic be on operational excellence. Now, first, my thought there is, well, that's just kind of one of those, big buzzwords that goes around in business. And the fact is, it is a buzzword. And there's tons of other buzzwords. And I don't think any of us can really clearly define what one of these does and doesn't mean, and how it does and doesn't equate and impact our business. So that's what we're talking about today. We're going to be talking about operational excellence. What the heck does this term actually mean? We know that organizations spend millions of dollars towards operational excellence. There's tons of tools and methodologies available. So we're going to kind of go give an overview and skim through a few of these. Not going to dig terribly deep, but that may be some opportunities for some future webinars we're putting on here. So with that, let's get started. I am never a big PowerPoint fan, but I want to make sure that I don't go down too many rabbit holes. So I'm going to be posting that here on the video, and I'll make sure that a copy of this presentation is available for anyone that wants a copy as well. So let me get that thrown up to the screen here. So there you go. What's operational excellence look like? Again, this is just one of those big, crazy buzzwords we toss around. And especially if you want to feel important in a meeting, these are one of the great terms we can throw out. But it's a great way to waste a lot of money, a lot of resources, and target the wrong goals. There's I actually don't know who the original quote is, but I hear Dave Ramsey talk about it. And it's like, you spend your whole life climbing the ladder only to realize you put your ladder against the wrong building. So we don't want to do that here in our organization. If we're going to dedicate a lot of time, a lot of resources towards a project, we want to make certain that we know exactly what it is and what we're going to do with it. So operational excellence, a lot of different options, and there's more out there than what we're putting here. Again, just kind of want to give a good overview for you so you can make some good quality decisions. Let me get my light adjusted here a bit. Sorry, it doesn't matter how many times you do this, lighting's never quite the same or predictable. So if only we could control the sun and the clouds, it'd be a lot easier. So again, these are some of the terms that we hear a lot. So lean manufacturing, the Toyota production system, great stuff there, but let's not put ourselves in a small box. Six Sigma, this is one that's really no telling the sums of money that have been thrown at Six Sigma programs, methodologies. And again, I am not knocking any of these, but I will state that each of these methodologies has a place and has a purpose. So Six Sigma, we'll dig into that just briefly. Kaizen, which kind of comes out of the same movement. But what I really want to focus some time on here at the end is, where did all of this stuff come from? And all of this came, not all of it, but a lot of this really came from two really influential thinkers that have created the modern quality management system as we know it. One is Joseph Juran, and the other is Edward Deming. So we'll spend a lot of time talking about them here at the end. Now, today's broadcast, we're only doing this for about an hour, probably spend about the first 30, 45 minutes talking about some of these details. We'll open up for questions at the end, but let's jump into some more detail. So lots of information here. Don't worry, I'm not going to read the whole screen to you. I hate it when folks do that to me. I'm not going to do it to you. But let's talk about what's lean manufacturing. What's this deal? We hear a lot about 5S. Of course, it kind of seems funny when we read it in English. And for anyone that's not familiar with these terms, that's kind of what I want to go into today. So what is lean manufacturing? What is the Toyota production system? Well, these are methods of management and running an organization, running your production system, your management system to root out waste. Where can we cut waste? Some of the simplest ways to do it. My kids know this very well. When I tell them to straighten the house, they need to clean up. You might notice I've got paint kind of a little bit everywhere. Let me raise this up here. A little bit of paint everywhere because we're getting ready to sell our house. And so doing touch-ups and work. And so when I tell the kids, I want you to clean, well, they immediately know what that means. It means get all of the junk off the floor. And that means put everything in its place. But they don't have an index of everywhere everything goes. So I have a simple rule. Make it perpendicular. If it is perpendicular to the wall, it immediately looks more clean and orderly. And that kind of follows along this line here as well. But lean manufacturing, the goal is that we want to eliminate overproduction. Overproduction is a huge, huge source of waste. We want to eliminate long wait times. All this sounds pretty good, right? No one likes to have this stuff on back order. Goodness knows the supply chain issues we've had this last year. We're looking at some of the problems here. We've got underproduction and then overproduction to make up for it. But then we've got the long wait times, excess transportation. All of the ports that were open on the West Coast, but different rules and restrictions and all sorts of mess going on. We actually have a Quality Matters podcast episode that dives into that. Maybe I can put that down in the comments here below later. Places like Florida were saying, hey, look, we'll take all of the cargo. Come on in. We'll cut you a break on the prices and everything. Well, that sounds great, but that's a long trip to get back there from the West Coast out to Florida. So excess transportation is a big deal. Variable processing methods. This is something that we talk about with a lot of our fabrication and manufacturing clients is there's a difference between running a quality management system and having a team of fantastic craftsmen. And I'm not knocking craftsmen at all. I love woodworking. It's one of my hobbies when I have time. But I'll tell you right now, if I build you two tables, I might make them look identical, but they were not built in identical manners. That's more of a craftsmanship role. So we want to make sure that if we're going to perform a task, we perform it in a repeatable method. We want to eliminate excess inventory. I mean, just think about that. Any excess inventory requires additional square footage, additional checks, additional everything. It just adds to our cost. Too much motion. These are, again, very fundamental ideas, but it actually took centuries for us to extrapolate these ideas. So this is good stuff that you don't want to pass over. But don't treat any of these tools as though they are everything. We don't want too many defects. Pretty straightforward. Every defect you have is loss in time, loss in materials, and was an opportunity to sell a product or a service that is now gone. So you've got lost opportunity there. Unused human creativity. This is one of the things we did one of the business visionary book clubs. We looked at the kind of Intel way of doing things, what they call the OKRs, objectives and key results. I swear my goal is not just to throw out buzzwords here for you today. But when we're talking about the objectives and key results, one of the big things we looked at was companies like Intel and Google, specifically, earlier in their days of implementing systems. Their goal was they wanted their people to have 20% of the week, a full work day, for their own projects, their own exploration, their own ideas. And let me tell you, you get good motivated folks that are doing good productive work, How's good productive work happen? Well, it happens by minimizing overproduction, wait times, and all those type stuff. So if you minimize these first 7, man, you've got a lot of opportunity for additional human creativity, and your people doing the work are where your best ideas and innovation are going to come from. Don't miss it. So I probably need to move on here a little bit quicker, but we'll go through 5S real briefly. So 5S kind of comes out of the lean manufacturing methodology. It is kind of its own separate process, but it's a quick way of thinking, how do we achieve these 8 goals here? Well, we want to sort, set in order, shine, standardize, sustain. Unfortunately, our English 5S's are kind of mistranslations of the original Japanese words. When we get to talking about Juran and Deming, you'll understand why folks in the quality management world are obsessed with Japanese terms. I'm not going to attempt to pronounce the Japanese terms over here. But a more appropriate translation are: we want to organize, we want to be orderly, cleanliness, standardize, and discipline. So there's lots of ways that these can be implemented. Again, this is one of those ideas that feeds into what we know of today as operational excellence. We'll move on here. All right, 6 Sigma. Whew. This one I could talk about for a while. I've seen amazing things and I've seen terrible things occur from 6 Sigma. That's not to say that it's neither good or bad, but it is a tool. We cannot, all of these are tools. We cannot treat the hammer as the most useful and valuable tool. It's just not going to do the job. It does the job really well in some instances, but not in others. The only reason I have a bit of a sour taste, I guess, for 6 Sigma is because I've seen a number of organizations really try to implement this at an extremely large scale without having the foundation that it's built on. And the foundation that 6 Sigma is built on, honestly, it comes out of the work of men like Juran and Edward Deming. And that's why we're going to focus on them a lot. So 6 Sigma, when built on top of a firm foundation of an existing quality management system, can provide you some fantastic results. Now, the idea of 6 Sigma in its simplest manner, so let's think about this. We all know the bell curve shape, right? Okay. Well, we have in mathematics what we call standard deviations. Okay. So let's take a look at standard deviation. So maybe not the best example, but easy enough example. So we take a look at IQ. The average IQ is 100. Now, does that mean that most people are an IQ of 100? No, we have some variability. So the idea of 6 Sigma is we're measuring that variability over a bell curve. And so you go out another standard deviation. You're at either 100, 110 or 90. Then you go out another and 120. You go out another and you go to another and go to another. And so the idea is that the majority of the population should fall into the bell curve, but we want to see how flat it goes. Now, again, we've got some podcast episodes on quality matters that I'll make sure to leave in the comments below that I think will be very useful for you. Kind of go into a little bit more detail here. But the idea of 6 Sigma is that if you go out 3 standard deviations to the left, you go out 3 standard deviations to the right, we wind up with about a 1 in a 1.5 million chance of something occurring. So the tighter we can get our manufacturing controls, the less and less and less and less likely we'll have a defect out on the outside of that bell curve. Okay, so we apply some mathematics. We find some places where defects occur, and we figure out how much we need to tighten those controls so that defects are almost statistically impossible. Great idea. But it does mean you have to have a lot of data points, and you do have to have a very firm foundation to base that system on. So we'll read a few things from this here. So 6 Sigma was founded on really universal principles, of Juran's trilogy, which we'll take a look at shortly. 6 Sigma, often paired with lean methodology, provides a comprehensive set of tools and methods to help organizations reduce cost and improve quality. This is all great, but again, it's built on a foundation. So you can kind of think about it like a cake. Well, if for you to have a cake, you'll first have to have the recipe to bake it. Then you have to make sure that you've got the table to set it on. If you don't have a table to set that cake on, doesn't matter how good the icing is. And if all you get's the icing, you're going to get pretty sick of it after a while. I've let my kids run that theory to the test before. So it's kind of the same thing. This is really the icing on the cake of a good functional management system. Since a lot of this came out of these different Japanese methodologies, this is why when people talk about Six Sigma, you'll probably see in their LinkedIn titles a whole lot, SS, all these different letters here. And so what they're saying is that they're a Six Sigma green belt or a Six Sigma black belt. And what that means is that they have done case studies, they have done their own work, run their project to show certain improvements, the waste they eliminated, and everything that went into it. They've passed a very comprehensive test. These really, really bright folks that have done a lot of work on it. So that's Six Sigma in a very quick nutshell. All right, Kaizen. This evolved even further from the same idea of Lean and Six Sigma. So Kaizen is Japanese word, Kai, which means change, and Zen, which means good change. All right, couldn't be too complicated there. But the idea of Kaizen is that we are looking to make an improvement. We're looking for continual improvement. So anyone that's accustomed to reading the ISO standards or listening to us talk about this for a while, continual improvement is huge. It is fundamental to any good management system. So Kaizen is a set of tools and methods of achieving that continual improvement. Now, the idea of Kaizen, though, is that these are not incremental continual improvements. These are, we have a problem. We're going to dedicate the right resources in the right method very quickly to achieve a very quick, large-scale change. So that's really the idea of Kaizen, is that we're skipping that incremental process that might take us 6 months or 12 months to achieve. We're going to do this in 10 days, and we're going to see results in 2 or 3 weeks. This is very quick, very rapid, very involved, very intense. Now, what this does mean is for you to implement Kaizen, that you have to have a problem that can pay off in the end, because you're going to be dedicating a lot of resources in a very short period of time. You're going to have a lot of cascading changes throughout the organization, which means you have to have enough people on board to identify and document all of those changes very quickly and very, very effectively. Part of Kaizen is that we're really trying to dig down to that root cause. We're trying to get there quickly, eliminate the root cause, put all the additional changes in place. So definitely something that can be useful. Again, I have seen organizations that have a Kaizen project darn near every month, and I'm just kind of scratching my head. I'm like, guys, if y'all have got that many large-scale problems that need this many resources to solve, we're kind of missing that foundation again. So we want to make sure that it is in place. So if Six Sigma is the icing on the cake, these are the sprinkles and the candles. We got to have everything else there for this to matter. But this does get you that one step further towards what we think of as operational excellence. So this is one that I love to talk about when we do our QMS Bootcamp. So actually, back before COVID hit, QMS Bootcamp was a quarterly 4-day course that we put on. It's one of my favorite things to talk about. It's kind of history of quality. It's a little bit of a different diagram than what I used in the past, but it really gets the point across. So when we think about quality, like, where'd it come from? I mean, how do we get here to this place where you can see up there, I've got the binders for API and ISO and OSHA, all this type of stuff. Like, how did we get here? Where'd it come from? Well, a lot of it really originated in the Middle Ages, and heck, you can go even further back to the stonemasons building the pyramids. Actually, one of my favorite books, a little bit of light reading here, Juran's Quality Control Handbook. He actually, has the pictographs of the Egyptians working on the pyramids there. So really kind of neat, fascinating stuff. This is where a lot of it came from and got started. Now, in the early days of craftsmanship, the idea was that you passed your craft down to the next person. It was heavily guarded secret. Very few people knew how to do what they did. So when you look at these medieval cathedrals and castles, and man, it's exquisite. How in the world did they build it? We actually don't know the answer to a lot of how these things were built. And it's because these were very, very closely guarded secrets that a very elite group of folks were allowed to know and practice. And this worked well. This really worked well for a long time. But then we had the Industrial Revolution beginning. And what happened then is that suddenly a machine was able to do the work of what multiple men could do before. So if we wanted to continue this progress, either we needed to vastly increase the number of people with this knowledge, or we needed to vastly increase the ability for those people to get the work done. And so that started leading to a lot more standardization. Then you start taking a look at interchangeable parts, like if you look at some of the earlier wars with firearms, if your gun broke, you couldn't borrow a part from someone else's. Everything was custom made to exactly what you had. But with the Industrial Revolution, we were getting interchangeable parts. Now, an interchangeable part only works if the two pieces fit together properly. It doesn't really happen much anymore, but I remember as a kid, if we bought like the cheap knockoff batteries, it wasn't a guarantee that cheap knockoff battery would fit in your toy. You had to get the Duracell or whatever it was to be certain it would fit there. And I remember crumpling up a little bit of tin foil or aluminum foil and putting in there to make sure it fit. It doesn't quite happen so much anymore, but this is a very simple idea is that, we want to make certain that we've got the tolerances so that each of these things are made equivalently each time. It's kind of like the USB cables that we have pretty much fit everywhere you go. So let's take a look at the slide here just a little bit more. So we've got the Industrial Revolution, and then we move into the factory system. So we're making thousands of components in a single factory. And this is really where things began to change, because now you've got a lot of components being made by similar people in a similar location in a repeat basis. And the tolerances and requirements for interchangeability are tighter and tighter and tighter than ever. Ford was a huge proponent of build out of the factory system. Then we move, advancements on the early factory system. From there, we kind of move into what we have in the early 20th century. And this is really where, like, say, Ford kind of took off, is they took this old factory system, making the same thing over and over and over and over and over. How can we improve it? How can we make it faster? How can we make it better? And we started applying some statistical techniques to it. So this is where you've got, the process control charts, SPC. And the idea being that you could know weeks in advance if that machine was going to be out of tolerance, and you could better prepare for maintenance or work on it. You can then identify as well, this machine has so much variability between each of the measures. Well, at what point, if we have a spike, was it spike because something went wrong, or was it spike because of a human error? And we started being able to actually dig in and analyze and understand these. And this was a huge part of advancement of quality management. Then you had folks like Juran and Deming and Schuhurst and came in and said, well, how much further can we take this? How can we influence the data that we're getting? And about the same time was World War II. And this caused a massive global industrialization. For better or worse, it's what it was. And you had the nations of the world dedicated to industrial manufacturing for the war effort. And this gave rise to the modern quality management systems that we have today. In the about the 70s and 80s is when everyone started hearing the buzz about what's going on in Japan and the Japanese manufacturing processes and the Toyota production system. And again, we've discussed this on the podcast before. But a really fun tool. Fun fact is Ford in the 70s actually went to visit Toyota, and they wanted to see what they were doing. That was so good. And so Toyota, being so confident in their method, said, sure, come on in, take a look. And so the Ford executives are going through the facility, and they're kind of puzzled because no one had rubber mallets, and a rubber mallet was just absolutely critical to the manufacture process for the Ford vehicles. And especially the very final assembly line, when the doors were the last component to be put on the vehicles, you're like, where's the mallets? Where's this? Where's the that? And the Toyota executives looked at them and basically said, we engineered to fit. We don't need to tap it into place. because what Ford would have to do is after they would put the door on, it would fit, but it's not a perfect fit. And so they would tap on it to kind of bend and adjust everything into place, and that'd work. Well, Toyota said, we don't have to do that. So every time that someone would tap and twist and move, that was wasted effort, wasted time, going all the way back to the lean stuff we looked at here a few minutes ago. This was all opportunity for time and cost savings and improve the quality of the product at the end. So really, really excellent stuff that came out of that. But that's why so many quality folks are obsessed with these Japanese terms. Now, the reason that Japan became so successful was because of the next two men that I've talked about here a few times that we're going to take a look at. So let me get the right slide up there. Sorry. All right. So we had two men. I'll just toggle through here real quick so you can see the faces. We have Joseph Juran and we have Edward Deming. Now, there were others, but these are the two that we're going to focus on because they're really, really hugely influential. So Joseph Juran had several ideas. He had what he called the guiding principles. And his 5 components and what we call the Juran trilogy. Six Sigma is largely based off of the Juran trilogy. And you'll understand very quickly how the concept of, Ford tapping the doors in place versus Japan not implies. But the big question here is, why are these two American men having anything to do with Japan? Well, it's somewhat complicated, but also somewhat simple. After World War I, Germany utterly destroyed, all sorts of sanctions controls put in place, but they were really, really bright group of folks, had a great industrial program, but they were really squashed to make sure that they didn't, try to take over the world again. Well, they still tried anyways. So after World War II, Japan was very similar, very industrial, very smart, very motivated group of folks. Well, how do we make sure that they don't become another Germany and try again? So rather than squashing the economy, quite like happened with Germany, and I'm massively oversimplifying here, men like Deming and Juran saw the opportunity to help improve their manufacturing systems to build them into an industrial complex. And that's exactly what they did. And so their work was way more well received in Japan than it was here in America. And so that led to this industrial revolution that we saw, kind of a new wave of industrial revolution that we saw in Japan. And so again, I'm not going to read through all of this, but I'll make sure you've got a copy of it. But Juran trilogy is really, really foundational here. So his idea is quality planning, that we design quality into the products and services we make. We're not simply saying we need a tolerance of this type. Well, why do we need a tolerance of that type? The component it fits into, what's its tolerance? How frequently will those two components not fit, either be too tight or too loose? So let's design it quality into our process at a planning level. Quality control. We want to make certain that we get exactly what we designed. So if you take a look at the ISO 9001 standard, it talks about design and development. Well, we have our verification. Did we build what we designed? And validation. Does it work the way we wanted it to work? This comes right out of the Juran trilogy as well. Quality improvement. We want to create breakthroughs in current performance. And this is where some of these ideas of Kaizen really come from, is, incremental continual improvement is fantastic. If all you ever rely on is incremental continual improvement, well, we would have wound up with a faster horse and not the automobile. So we have to make certain that continual improvement is not just the incremental improvement that's a part of quality control, quality planning, but that we do have these breakthrough moments in quality and planning. Now, what Juran's often quoted for is, he says that we need to embrace quality. And to him, quality is a word that is commonly refused to customers, features, and it's designed to drive sales. But really, to Juran, what quality was, the superior quality products and services always lead to better sustainable financial performance. Now, that can be reinterpreted over and over and over throughout organizations, but that's really what quality is. It leads to sustainable performance. That doesn't mean that we're good for the quarter, we're good for the year. How can we develop an enduring organization that over the decades can continue to innovate and provide quality products and services. Another big piece, let me change the layout here so we can see a little bit better, is what we call the 5 components. So first, understand the guiding principles. All right. So to improve the customer experience. We talk about this a lot in our consultations as well, and especially with as software is a component of our business. One of the things to talk about with software is you'll find that users today are happy to make about the first 3 clicks. After they make 3 clicks, you lose half of your users with every 4th click. That engagement goes away, goes away, goes away, goes away. It's one of the reasons that companies like Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn and all of them now have the infinite scroll. You know, you don't have to click to find something new. You just one scroll. So improving that customer experience is absolutely, absolutely vital. So whenever you take a look at it, really put yourself in that customer's perspective. How can we use this? How's this going to work? What are their thoughts? If they call and ask for support, what do they want to hear on the other line? And these type of things. So we want to create infrastructure that engages employees to make improvements. This is huge, folks. I just cannot overemphasize your people, your team are absolutely your number one resource. I know how horribly cliche that sounds. I really do. I was talking with someone here in the office this morning. I was telling them, like, look, you need to get a list of books you need to read. One of them, you need to read Jim Collins' Good to Great. This is where the phrase "get the right people on the bus" comes from. And it really is. You want to make certain that your folks are engaged in the work they do. Does this mean every single person is? No. Some people really just want to go clock in, clock out, go home. Okay. But a lot of others looking for something more. So let's give them the opportunity for something more. Let's give them the opportunity for a little bit of additional fulfillment. And you'll find that when people are fulfilled in the work they do, and they're motivated to do it, and they're excited about what they do, they're going to have good ideas. So make sure that you are humble enough to listen to those ideas and interpret them and integrate them into your future plans. So one of the last points here is process improvement teams to drive process efficiency. Don't go it alone. Don't make sole decisions. Deming has the same idea. He calls them quality circles. And so the idea is that we're going to get a group of folks together to really look at how can we improve the process, not the product, but the process, how we make it. The output's going to be the same, but how can we improve how we get to the output? It's going to mean fewer steps, fewer opportunities for defects. Again, all of these things start to come full circle once we start taking a look at the work of these men. And leadership and workforce engagement, which I already kind of touched on here, is the people have to be involved. This was one of the big shifts from the early factory and Taylor systems of you just needed people to do the work, do it the way they're told, and we'll be good. But it just doesn't work that way anymore. We need people to do the work and to do as they're told. And that's where quality control comes in. We check to make sure it's done. But then we also need to recognize that they see the teeny tiny waste throughout the day that may be monopolizing 20, 30% of their day. Let's find a way to cut it out. Let's find a way to make improvements. You'll find too that the fewer steps you take, the more improvement you get. All right, let's move on here. Edward Deming. So I probably talk about Deming in our podcast more than anyone else. Honestly, probably just because I've read more of his work than I've read of Juran's. But, we've got here, like I say, a little bit of light reading that I'm trying to work my way through. So maybe we'll be hearing more about Juran here in the future. But let's talk about Deming briefly here. So let's get the screen right there. There we go. So Deming had lots and lots of ideas. Our modern process approach is largely a result of Deming as well. The idea of plan, do, check, act, inputs convert to outputs. But really at the basis of everything that Deming did was in what he called a system of profound knowledge, or the 14 points of management. So we're going to do a whole webinar series dedicated to the 14 points. So I'm not going to go into it in too much detail here, but this is his methodology, his idea, his theory of how do we create that management system that's going to drive that performance, that's going to last for decades, that's going to be sustainable, that's going to be revolutionary and create those breakthroughs that Juran has talked about. So consistency of purpose. Your organization has to have a purpose. We can't be squirrely. We have to know what we are, who we are, and what we're doing. If you're doing 10 different things, you're doing 10 different things half well. If you're doing two things, you're doing two things well. So we want to adopt a new philosophy. This is unfortunately a lot of bad misunderstandings and cheap understandings. Deming's work has led to a lot of these management workshops where we put on the workshop for the day and we have the catchphrase and we try to barrel forward, but people just don't internalize it. They really do need to internalize it. And a lot of this may sound kind of cheesy and corny, but we spend more time at work than we do with our family. You take the amount of hours you sleep into consideration, you spend more time at your job than you do with your family. So we love our family. We need to make sure that our work is in alignment with our goals and that's the company's goals. So we want to cease dependence on inspection to achieve quality. This is a big one. Just checking it, just inspecting it. That's not the way to improve quality. You might say, well, we found every defect and we sent 100% conforming out the door. Well, you might have, but dadgum, how many inspection points did you have? How many additional hours, days, weeks, months did it take to get the product out the door? If you could have done in 2 weeks what you just did in 2 months, that's a lot more opportunity for revenue and a lot of decreased cost. I mean, you're talking about 100x difference in your organization there. We want to end the practice of awarding business on price alone. Yeah, I think we all kind of get the idea. I mean, we've all bought the stuff from eBay or Amazon from some random knockoff, and it just didn't work well. It just didn't work well. We did that recently for the podcast. We tried to get some new cameras, and we bought some little knockoff cameras, and no brand on it, and things were rough. Had to replace those pretty quickly. So don't do it based on price alone. When you're working with a supplier, and this is one thing Deming says that's somewhat controversial, is Deming's idea is that if you have a critical component or critical service, you should have one supplier. Now, this sounds horribly controversial, but his idea here is if they are truly a critical component to your operation, then you need to build a relationship with them, a very strong relationship with them, almost as though they were a part of your organization, because they are critical to the success of your organization. The more you work strongly with that single supplier, the better you're going to be able to ensure that they provide a consistent level of quality for you. And in return, you're able to better support them for their long-term growth, their continued innovation, and their continual improvement. And it becomes a very much a two-way street for improvement there. So GE has processes for beating down suppliers. That's really probably the best way to say it. Now they've got these whole supply chain methodologies they try to apply to it, but the fact is, let's just beat them down on their price. Well, you kind of get what you get. Now, yes, there's going to be the next guy lined up to take it, but it doesn't create that long-term success that you're looking for. So we want to improve constantly and forever for every process. Continual improvement never ends. This is the incremental improvements that we're talking about. It truly never ends. We want to institute training on the job. Big one, not a whole lot to talk about there for today. Adopt institute leadership. We'll probably save this one for another time. Drive out fear. This is probably my favorite one here. If your folks are coming to work every day fearful that a mistake might cost them or someone else their job, you might think, well, they'll make sure to get it done right because they know what's going to happen. Maybe so, but they're only going to give you the minimum necessary. And when they do mess up, that's going to get swept under the rug real quick, real good. So a organization based on fear, not such a good idea. Eliminate slogans. My next favorite one. It's really funny. I go into a lot of shops these days, and I can't even count the number of facilities I've been into, whether auditing, consulting, training, whatever it may be. And you see all these slogans up on the wall, some of them, 0 defects, no accidents, no injuries, safety first. And it's really funny to see safety first when there's lubricant spilled on the floor, everything's dusty and nasty as all heck, poor lighting everywhere, but safety first, guys. It creates an attitude, it creates a culture of, it's disingenuous. Everyone knows that it's junk. Everyone truly knows that what you're saying is just what you're saying, and we're not living it. Those slogans can destroy. I want to break down barriers between staff. Let folks talk to each other. Let them communicate with each other. I've run into this personally in a previous job with purchasing. I could not for the life of me comprehend why they wanted me to fill out the paper they wanted me to fill out. I had to fill out this, so much information just to order the simplest things. And it just could not contemplate it. So I actually sat down with the purchasing and said, why do you have me do this? I really need to understand, how does this benefit you? And in the end, we were able to come up with a new form that they used that saved everyone way more time when purchasing things, meant that they got the information they needed faster and had fewer checks on it. So really, when you allow folks to work together and truly work together, it's kind of amazing the good that can come out of it. All right, so we got a question here. How would you incorporate its 14 points into a QMS? Well, a lot of these 14 points were reintegrated into what ISO 9001 calls the quality management principles. And we've also talked about these on the Quality Matters podcast a lot. So when we take a few of these, so let's take down drive out fear, and adopt a new philosophy. Well, all of these kind of get culminated into leadership. Really, what's leadership mean? And they dig into and dive into a little bit deeper. Relationship management is one of the quality management principles. This very much comes from Deming's philosophy on suppliers. It's really building a relationship with that supplier. Now, if we're looking for just a commodity, like I'll tell you what, I don't give two flips where I get my printer paper from. I really don't. As long as it's not the cheap stuff that's going to cause my printer to jam, I really don't care where I get my paper from at all. However, if we're doing a legal assessment for an organization to make certain that their environmental risks are maintained, we've got someone we've got a darn good relationship with there, and they are the only ones we're going to use for those environmental risk assessments, because we want to make certain that you get a good quality product. And with that good relationship, we're able to manage it and maintain it. So really, a lot of these 14 points get reintegrated into the quality management principles. I'm running low on time here, but Deming talks about institute a vigorous program of education and self-improvement. So let's take for a moment. I'll spare you the scroll and the slides here. But let's go back up to some of these ideas of operational excellence. And really, the work of men like Juran and Deming is where this came from. So operational excellence really comes out of early 1970s. Joseph Juran, big one, Deming here. But they were the experts at the time. They were teaching the Japanese business leaders how to improve quality. More and more companies adopted these systems, and we got what we know of today as Toyota manufacturing process, Toyota production process, Lean Six Sigma, Kaizen. We get all of these things from it. And Deming actually wrote a fantastic book called Out of the Crisis. And his idea is, and honestly, I think it's still true, I don't think we here in America quite listen to him, is the idea that the American and really Western manufacturing systems are in a crisis. And it extends far beyond their manufacturing systems and the government, education, whole slew of things that are open for improvement that these same principles can apply to. So there's really, really a lot that comes out of it. So when you're sitting in your next board meeting, you're sitting in the next management meeting, and folks start tossing around these terms, operational excellence, lean and Six Sigma and Kaizen, just really dig in to understand what they're trying to do. They are either, one, just trying to spit out terms to sound smart, or two, they really want to improve quality, but maybe we're not using the right tool. Maybe we are using the right tool, but maybe we need a better foundation in place. So make certain that you've got a good, solid quality management system in place, a good solid foundation in place. And a lot of these really start by exploring some other systems, like the ISO 9001 type system, API Q1, really, really great stuff. So if there's anything that you're interested in, if you're looking at thinking, well, how can we improve our service? How can we improve our products? How can we decrease cost? How can we drive employee engagement? Give us a call. I've never billed for a question or a phone call. So please give us a call. Let's talk. Let's see what you're trying to do, and let's see what the best tool is that you need. And let's make sure that you get that toolbox stocked and you get the tools and resources you need to drive improvement and to really have operational excellence in your workplace. So if you want to chat with me, all of my LinkedIn information, I'll make sure is below. You can find us at texasqa.com, Texas Quality Assurance. Shoot us an email, info@texasqa.com. Give us a call. We want to help. We really, really want to help. I have to say that's the number one thing I love about my job is that we do work with the small and mid-sized organizations, and we really get to see the impact it makes. And it's just a really fantastic thing. So give us a call. We'd love to help. Hopefully you learned something here. And again, if you have any questions at all, let me know. I'd love to chat with you. Y'all have a great day.